the chat, and we're here to answer all the doubts that you may have. So this is just to say welcome to Ercilia, welcome to this Outreachy contribution period, the first one of this year. There will be a second round later in the year. As you may know, Ercilia has already been participating in Outreachy in a couple of occasions before. It's always a good and intense experience, both for mentors, interns, and contributors. Do you see these people trying to join, or I need to accept them manually? Oh, Pauline is here. Okay. So I'll stay like this without full screen so that I can keep admitting people to the meeting. Um, so very briefly, who are we? We are a tech nonprofit initiative. We work to equip laboratories, clinics, and universities in low and middle income countries with artificial intelligence tools for infectious disease research, as you may have seen, mostly working around drug discovery. So Ercilia is a small initiative born out of the United Kingdom in Europe, though we are moving our offices to Barcelona in Spain. But we are actually a worldwide community. We are used to working across several time zones. You may see me responding messages at a time that is not convenient for you. We don't expect people to be up until 3 in the morning in their time zone. So please, we need to learn to work asynchronously. So you tackle and respond whenever it's your working hours. Ercilia is almost 3 years old. We were founded in November 2020 officially, and officially a bit more than that. And our main goal is to make artificial intelligence easy to use for scientists, so people that does not have expertise in programming, Python, coding, code environments, and all this. So who are we in this today in this call and in this next outreach round? Well, let me introduce myself, then I'll pass the word to Ank and Danjri. I'm Gemma. I'm Ercilia's co-founder and CEO. My background is in molecular biology, so I'm actually quite a newbie to programming. I only learned Python a few years ago, so I very well remember the pain that it was. So I empathize with all of you that are still learning as well. And and my main interest to founder Celia is to actually provide support to scientists who, like me, a few years ago could not use any of these very cool tools that were being developed around because I was not a computer scientist. And with that, sorry, Mikel cannot join us today. Sadly, we've had some last minute emergencies. That's why I had to postpone the meeting yesterday. Thanks for still making to the meeting today. Mikel is a Resilience lead scientist. He's a computational researcher. He did his PhD in computer biology using AI applied to drug discovery for non-communicable diseases. And during his career, he's been working in several countries, including Mozambique and Zambia and El Salvador. And this is where he grew interested in infectious disease research and started thinking about co-founding Ercilia. And with us, we have today our two other outreach mentors, Ank and Danjri. So I'll let you introduce yourselves, maybe explain a bit the work that you've been doing outside and within Ercilia. So who wants to go? Ankur, you go first, maybe, just because I have you here. Thank you, Ankur. Thanks, Ank. So we've been very lucky to count on Ank for the last year and that he agreed to volunteer his time also for the Outreachy cohort. So I want just to mention that Outreachy mentors are volunteer positions. So we are very lucky to count on his support, and he's been doing great projects with Ercilia. So looking forward to this Outreachy program together. Thank you. And Danjri, do you want to go next? Mhm. Oh, you lost Dan? Okay, sorry. I think I lost you, Danshi, but I don't know if it's my internet. So, okay. Oh, yeah. So it's her, not me. Mm. Are you here, Danshi? Yeah, cool. Okay. Yes, 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 you are. Do you hear us, Danshi, now? Oh, you are muted. Okay, let's then continue while Danshi tries to rejoin. So as you can see here, we've tried to assemble a good team for the mentors, which includes someone who has already been in Outreachy so that they have the experience and more closely related to what you're experiencing. Someone who's really good in software development, Ankur, sorry, I keep you calling Ankur today, I don't know why. And then Mikel and myself, who are the leaders of the project and who know where we want to take this and what are the important issues to focus on. So with that, let's start by communication. Communication is very, very important, especially because we are in a remote setting, we are online, all of us in different time zones. So the first and most important, I'm going to say it only once, almost everything you will need is written in the contribution guidelines and their serious documentation. It's very tiring for mentors to actually have to answer questions that are already answered in the contribution guidelines because you have not read them. So please do read everything in detail. Then let's use Slack, which you are already, all of you are already familiar with. Let's favor open channels instead of private messaging so that everyone can see what's going on. And then let's use GitHub. You have a single GitHub issue assigned to each one of you, which allows you to track all your progress in a single place, making it much easier to then write your Outreachy contributions and for the mentors to review your work and so on and so forth. Let's try not to use email only if there is something really, really urgent, because we mentors, we already have a lot of incoming email from a variety of places. So we try to reduce that as much as possible, because otherwise we are not able to answer all of them. I hope you can relate, some of you. And I think the most important slide of today is how not to communicate with either mentors or other interns, other people in the community, other people in the open source space. The first thing not to do is to use any kind of disrespectful language. This means also like, oh, this doesn't work, in a not nice way, especially if you are speaking to someone outside their Cyria community, someone who is not part of the Outreachy channel. It's not nice to suddenly receive a message from someone you don't know, just like criticizing your tools. So before asking, or complaining, make sure you have tried all your options, make sure you have understood what is the problem, you have looked for solutions on your own. And then don't paste errors without explanation. So when you get log files, when you get errors, you can do internet searches. You can read through the error to actually identify what is the error, so that you save time to your mentors, to the other people that are trying to help you, and you actually start learning how to identify small bugs and so on. And then also be patient. As I said many times already, we are in different time zones. Mentors are volunteers, so we have limited time. So if you don't get an answer in the less than 24 hours, it's fine. You'll get an answer in the next 48. We are doing our best, but just have a bit of patience with us, because we are really working long hours and adding up on top of that. I'm not saying not ask as many questions as you need, but please be mindful of our time. I said already, also, do not share screenshots unless it's strictly necessary, because some of them are blurry, then they download in your computer, it's difficult to follow them. I cannot copy a line of text. So try to actually write the code in code format inside GitHub or Slack. Makes it much easier for anyone to actually help you out than a screenshot. And the last thing, in this internship during the contribution period, we do not support AI generated text. You know, there are all these new cool tools to generate AI. Can be very useful, but if I find a motivation letter that has been written by AI instead of your own words, this will mean that you are no longer eligible to participate in the Cyria community. So please avoid this, because we really want to hear from you. We want to see your skills, your expertise, and hear from your experience. Okay, so let's try to avoid these tools. You know, there are many ways of checking whether a text has been AI generated or not. So if we have doubts, we'll be using this. That said, any questions before I start giving an outline of the contribution period? Anyone has comments? Okay. Yeah, is there a question? Oh, thank you for that question. No, the first official Syria meeting was in February 2020 in Spain, actually before COVID was a thing, at least in Europe. So we didn't know what was coming. So it's not a COVID, I mean, it was built mostly during COVID times, but it was not a result of the COVID pandemic that we decided to tackle infectious diseases. We actually tried to not do COVID because we think there is already a lot of resources into that disease compared to others. But yes, thank you for this question. It was a coincidence in time, indeed. Thanks. Okay, if there is no more questions, I'll jump into an overview of the contribution period, which most of you are familiar with already. So this year, we have set a number of tasks, specific tasks. This is in order to avoid overburdening contributors. So I understand this can be a very hectic period and stressful. So we don't want you tackling 1,000 tasks on your extra hours. Many of you are studying and so on. So this is a guide to help you just focus on the important things. If you complete these tasks in a timely manner, with good descriptions, with complete complete explanations and so on, and you help your peers achieve the same, etc. This is enough to contribute to apply to the Ercilia as an Outreachy intern. Some of you have finished earlier because you have more time or because you're going faster. In that case, I assign you extra tasks, but it doesn't matter for those of you that are going slower for any reason, that you cannot still apply to Ercilia's internship, okay? So for the first week, what you need to focus on is getting familiar with the community, joining the Slack, GitHub, reading Gitbook, follow our repositories. For example, you can start it, you can watch it. I'm not sure if you are familiar with all this, but it actually helps you. So let me pull up Ercilia's repository, for example. So here I see I have repositories that I'm watching, that I'm starring. This allows me to very easily like follow the things that are happening, setting email notifications for all these repos that I'm following. So I recommend that you do that for Ercilia or other projects that you're actually following. It's very useful to have everything, all the notifications, and don't miss anything. Sorry, I'm not a native English speaker. You can hear my Spanish accent probably. The second task was to open an issue. There was a template that will nicely pop up all these tasks so that you can click on them and follow your project progress. Then you should install Ercilia on your systems. Windows users need to use Windows subsystem for Linux, which doesn't give much problem. What is giving us a lot of headache, and we are aware of it, is the Mac systems, because the newest updates don't support Python 3.7. Which is a problem since many of the things we've developed are in 3.7. But we are working on that. So I think I've been in contact with all of you individually, the ones that were facing issues. We are aware of this and we are trying to solve it. We may not be able to have it solved before the end of this contribution period. But yeah, I'm in contact with all of you, so we'll find a workaround. Then write a motivation statement. This is one of the most important things to do. I would recommend like at least 2 paragraphs where you explain what you have done before, what you want to do Tercilia, what you want to do in your future. Explain it in your own words. We want to hear about you and why this internship would be important for you. And then finally, very important, please register your application to the Outreachy website, because everything goes through the Outreachy website. If you don't do that, we cannot select you. So make sure that you've completed these points. The goals of this week, of the first week, are straightforward. Learn about Ercilia, tell us about you, so that so you learn about us, we learn about you, and you get familiar with our infrastructure. That's simple. So for those of you that may have arrived a bit later and have not yet completed week 1 goals, that's easy. They are quite straightforward. So I would suggest that you go ahead into it. I think there is a question, or oh, someone is coming in. Okay, any questions for week 1? No questions, no comments? Cool, guys. If there is no questions, I go ahead. Week 2. Okay, we are in week 2 at this moment, so most of you are in this moment. What you have to do? Here we have tried to provide you with a guide. So we have selected a few models which are implemented in Ercilia already. Is there, that was a question? Yeah. Can you read it out loud for me so that I know? The motivation letter, it's simply, you can simply comment on your issue with your motivation letter, and that's as easy as this. So you can just paste it there on your GitHub issue so that it will always be there, easy to find. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Okay, so on week 2, you have your open source model. You can pick it from a list. I think we selected like 4 that have already been implemented by other CL contributors, for example, Danjri. And so we know that they work. They are not particularly straightforward, many of them, to implement. This is so that you can actually test your skills and see where you are failing, where you need support, so that you can also learn a bit during the process. Um, Very importantly is to understand the model. We need to see that you are able to follow the basics of machine learning. So what is a classification model? What is a regression model? How do I interpret the number that I have? Because I get a number, but what is this number? Can I read it? Do I understand what it means? Is this model published? Is it licensed? Is it an open source license? Do I have any special consideration about using this model or not? Because these are all questions that you need to ask yourself while you are doing the internship with us. Yes, so here we are doing like a small mimic of things that we'll be doing during the internship so that you can actually see how it will be like. Then once you have understood what this model is about, what it's doing, try to follow this other repository that has nothing to do with Ercilia. Try to install it, try to run it. You'll find different issues. You'll find dependency problems most likely. All this is one of the reasons why Ercilia exists. Using all these models which are out there is actually very complicated because they have been developed by very different people in very different systems. So actually what we are trying to do is make sure that these models can be run easily. And then because these models are implemented within Ercilia already, let's compare. This is like a check to make sure that what we are getting and what we are providing at Ercilia makes sense, so that we can compare the results from one model and the Ercilia model and make sure that we are actually have implemented this model right. And you can compare on these results. You can make some graphs, explanations, like whatever you think is best to do this. The goals of this week is to simply like, that Python knowledge, a minimum of Python knowledge is required for this internship. So this is where you can show that you actually know Python. You can show that you know how to follow documentation. You can work with open source code. You are starting to learn about Python packages, from the environments, dependencies. I just have started to read about machine learning in biomedicine. I think I linked in the Slack channel already a nice workshop that we did. There is a lot of documentation there. You can also run through this documentation to get a bit more familiar with machine learning for biomedicine. Is there any questions for this week too? Questions, yes. Isaac. Mhm. Mhm. Yes, so in this case, Isaac, I think I just saw your comment this afternoon. I think MIPE was not in the list of models that we put out there for you to try. I think that's not on the 4 or 5 that we selected, which are in the documentation. The reason being, especially, is because MIPE is actually, they don't provide the source code, so they only provide an API. So it won't allow you to like actually do an local implementation with Python. So I suggest you go back to the contribution guidelines and look at the one of the 4 repositories that we have linked there for testing. Okay, cool. And of course, by the way, if you test the MIPE model with their implementation, it's a bit different because we had to do a surrogate model because of the online thing. But okay, more questions for week 2. Cool. If there are no questions, let's go to week 3. So week 3 is a bit of a buffer. So some of you may not finish the things from week 2, or because I assign you extra tasks, you may still be a bit busy with them. So it's to finish everything to make sure that week 2 is completed for good, and any tasks extra that I assign to you are also completed. And then I know this, some people has never really looked into scientific literature before. Take this as a learning opportunity. The idea here is to learn about machine learning, to show that you can find new models, can try to understand new models, So basically, it's to find new models that have been published, that are open source, that are somehow related to our mission one way or another, because they predict antimicrobial activity, antimalarial activity. They are related to drug discovery. They are related to working with the small molecules. And of course, that they are not already in the hub. We have like 90 models, so that's many more options to include out there. And then try to explain this model and why it could be relevant. I think with Danshe will can comment on this, but we try to encourage our interns to make their own model suggestions, to pick models based on different architectures or so on. I don't know, Danji, what do you think about this? Was it like a good experience to do that? Or? Thank you, Angie. Yeah, so exactly that's a bit what it's about. So for week 3, we would like each one of you to try and look for up to 3 models that you think would be nice to work with. The goals of this is to get familiar with scientific literature, to find models that you actually would like to work on during the internship, and also basically to show us that you have interest in this field, in machine learning. You don't have to be experts at this moment. You are here to learn, but at least you need to show that you want to work on this field. That's why we provide you with this internship opportunity. So it's a good moment for you to read and enjoy. Um, what like scientific literature is out there in many websites. I listed some of them in the contribution guidelines. I know most of you don't have access to some scientific publications, neither do we. So we use either bioarchive, so archives where preprints of the papers are published there. We use a website that's called SciHub that provides free access to publications. Um, and these websites. So I know this may be a challenge. If there is something that you're really interested on and you cannot find the publication anywhere, ping me and I'll try to get it to you so that you can read it. I usually ask friends at universities to download these publications. Okay, week 4. Week 4 is very easy. You only have to do one thing, which is prepare your application. I don't want people like working on code on the last week of the contribution period. Why? Because we don't have time to help you out if you have any problem. If there is internet issues, if there is electricity issues, if you didn't read the Outreachy guidelines properly and you have now a clash or conflict with your university schedules, with whatever, we won't be able to provide support. We've been before in the situation where we selected an intern and this intern at the end could not participate because of all these issues, because they could not submit on time and so on. We do not manage this. This is on Outreachy. So if we don't see your application on the Outreachy website, we cannot really do anything. Please make sure to do that. I'm happy if you did 3 weeks of contribution and then in 2 days you prepare your application and submit it. That's wonderful so that we can start reviewing applications. Okay, so just dedicate the last week to make a nice final application, submit it on time to the Outreachy website, and then enjoy and wait for the outcome of all this contribution period. But don't push it to the limit because limits are not nice. Never submit something the last day. You never know what may happen. Okay, so I think with that, this is everything.